baby.
Hey, Jim. You can see where I am. I guess I don't need to wear this. I'm outside and alone. So as promised, today we're going to hopefully pull all of these 12 bolts out and pull this cover off and drain all the oil out and replace it. But the first step is going to be degreasing. So let me show you the table of supplies. Well, you can see the table of supplies back there, right there. And you also see I have on safety glasses because I'm going to be spraying degreaser and I'm going to be using the pressure washer. And I want to be able to see tomorrow. So I'm covering up my eyes with this dumb plastic thing today. So here's the table. We have a new gasket and new stainless bolts, cap bolts with washers, and this is for the front differential, which we have right here. And then I have this one, which is for the rear that we just saw. New hardware. It's for the plug. And I'm not going to use this particular gasket that this came with. I got a slightly better gasket that I had ordered separately, so that's the one I'm going to use. Now, I heard and I read that from the factory, these axles on these trucks were made in Sterling, Michigan, and that's why they're called the Sterling axle. They have a 10.5-inch ring gear, and I read that they don't have a gasket from the factory, that they just are sealed with silicone. So that's what I'm expecting to find when I take it apart. But we're going to use a gasket, and we're going to use some Permatex here to make sure everything seals up real good. I have this Mobile One full synthetic for the front, which is 75W90. And then back for the rear, we have this synthetic, full synthetic, 75W140 is for the rear. And I have two different kinds because they only had one bottle of this that I could find. So this is also full synthetic, 75W140. The difference is this one has a limited slip friction modifier included. Now, my rear end is a limited slip. You're supposed to put 8 ounces of a limited slip modifier in with the oil. So I figured with 3 here, that one's already got it added. Those two do not. So I got a 4-ounce friction modifier. So that should make the rear end chemistry proper. And and I got one of these, the guys, thinking this might help transfer the fluid in, and it might also help on my Mercedes transmission when I come to do that. And I'm going to do that real soon, like in the next few days. I'm going to have that Mercedes in here. I'm going to put it up on the lift, and I'm going to do a transmission tune-up. And hopefully that will make the Mercedes work again and drive again, so I can start playing with it and use it. And I got to go do a bunch of burnouts, so I have a reason to get new tires for it. That kind of thing, Anyway, the Mercedes transmission is going to get worked on here. Boy, probably in the next 2 days. That's what I'm gunning for. But we'll see how this axle thing goes, because this has to be completely good to go before I bring the Mercedes in. Okay, so let's get to degreasing. Oh, and there's another thing I'm going to do with the degreasing. I have always used this kind of stuff. You can buy it at Smart and Final or a place like that, and I put it in a spray bottle. This is not Purple Power, it's degreaser from here. It's for restaurants. They use it to clean the hoods and stuff in the kitchen. So I've always used this and had fairly good luck with it. It's when you read the back, you can put it on a lot of different surfaces without damaging. Brick, Naugahyde, brass. So it's non-damaging, which I seem to like. But anyway, we're going to try this in one section of that terrible greasy rear end. And then we're going to try the old go-to gunk engine degreaser on another area, and then let them sit as they say to do on the back, and then pressure wash and see if this super cheap stuff, I mean, this stuff is like $3.50 a can, and this, I don't remember exactly, but I think it's like $5 for a whole gallon. And then if you want to, you can even thin it down. I don't, but it says if you want to, you can add more water to it. So it's just way more cost effective. So let's see if it actually works as good. Well, it'll be interesting to see. Okay, the grease buildup is pretty spectacular on this thing. So I'm going to spray the left side with the gunk. And it says to let it soak for 10 to 15 minutes. So we'll do that. And then it also says to loosen up any heavy deposits with a brush. So I'll get a wire brush and we'll do that. And then I'm going to do the right side with my restaurant hood stuff. And we'll see how that goes. This is very scientific, as you can see. So I'll get back in here and I'll loosen the stuff up after 15 minutes with a brush. And then we'll get out the pressure washer and see what's happening. Boy, I can see this grease over here already kind of lifting and wrinkling up. So that's a good sign. Of course, I can see it bubbling over here. So that's a good sign too. Yay. I'm going to go spray the front while we're at it. Well, it's been about 15 or 20 minutes, and it looks like it's loosened up quite a bit. So I'm going to get scraper, chisel, screwdriver, and start scraping off the big chunks and see which side is loosened up the best. Okay, this is our gunk side. I'm going to use this just a little pry tool and just see. Yeah, okay. It's coming off very easily, and I'm catching it all in this rag down here. Yeah, okay. I don't want to blow all this shit all over the place with the pressure washer, so I'm just going to go ahead and knock off this big stuff before I get into the pressure washer. But yeah, okay. This stuff is coming off all the way down to the metal here with no problem. Yeah, so let's see about over here. I move my towel over, and this is the section that I used the restaurant hood degreaser. And okay, I'm gonna say it doesn't come off nearly as nicely. It's still kind of stuck, and the side with the gunk you see here comes off way easier. Okay, so I don't think you need to see all of this. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to retreat this side with the gunk stuff, and there you have it, the gunk stuff. Yeah, you could get away with this stuff, but the gunk stuff's definitely more effective. Okay, well, that worked out pretty good. It looks fairly clean compared to what it was before. So now my next step before I start loosening up these 12 bolts is I'm going to make sure, let's see, I don't know if we can see it right from here, but you see down there, there is it's the fill plug. Let's see if I can get a little closer. Yeah. That fill plug down there, I'm going to have to make sure that that's not seized. Because if I can't get that out, I don't want to empty all the rest of the oil out of this rear end yet. So my next step is going to be I'm going to spray that down real good with some PB Blaster, penetrating oil, and then let it sit for a little bit, and then I'm going to see if I can make that break loose. And if that breaks loose, I'll move on to the other 12 surrounding half-inch bolts. Right, the PB Blaster did its job, and the plug came out without too much trouble. It was pretty tight, but then it broke loose. This is a square 3/8 drive, so to take it out, I just used a regular, well, this is a breaker bar kind of a ratchet, but it took a little bit of effort, but it did come out okay. And now it does have a magnet on it, and we can see that this absolutely does have metal debris. So let me wipe it off here on this white towel. See what we've got here. Definitely proving that the magnet on this plug has been working. I don't see any big shavings. I don't think this has ever actually been taken out since this vehicle was new. That would be my guess. So this is all just break-in stuff, I'm thinking. There's no big shavings or anything like that, but we'll certainly see more when I pull the rest of the let's see. Yeah, that's a little better. It'll prove more to us when I get the cover off and we're able to see up inside, but that doesn't look too terrible to me. Maybe it does to someone else, but that seems pretty normal and okay for a vehicle with 130,000 miles on it. Okay, so now I'm going to start breaking loose those other 12 and drain whatever oil is left. I'll bet there's not much. And, you know, this might be a good time to talk about what all of this stuff costs. I like to say what the actual financial outlay was. And I'll tell you right here, the two diff covers, the aluminum diff covers off of eBay, by the time I paid for everything with taxes, including sales tax, they were about $200. So that's not too bad. And then all of the supplies here that I got earlier, including the little pump, that was just call it $125. So I've got about $325 in this. Oh, wait a minute. And this extra, this better gasket, that was like $20 or so. So actually I've got about $350 into this by the time it's all said and done. But that's okay, because it needed it, and first time since 1999 that this has been done, so it's really okay. I'm all right with it. Now, we want to talk about costs. Let's talk about the cost of my catalytic converter replacement, because that was expensive. That was ridiculous. That cost $800 with the catalytic converter, and they took my oxygen sensor. When they stole the cat, they just cut the wires. Of course, why would they unscrew the O2 sensor? So between the cat and the O2 sensor, that cost about $850 to replace. So, boy, I hate catalytic converter thieves. Man. Anyway, enough for that rant. Let's take off the 12 bolts on the rear end cover. It's about as clean as it's going to be. And I want you to take note that I have a towel down to protect the driveway in case of errant oil spills. See, honey? I'm being tidy. And my nice oil catch pan. And it's got a little screen in it. So if I drop one of the bolts, it won't go into the oil goo where I have to fish it out and get all messy. So let me show you what I got here. There are 12 bolts that go around the perimeter of this, and they're 1/2 inch. You can see a tag right here from the factory that says 75W140 synthetic oil only, which is exactly what we got. Yay. So I'm going to leave the top two, I'm going to back them out several turns, but then leave them in place and then go around and remove all of the other ones. And that way it'll hopefully make it so when I pry this loose, the oil will come out of it in a more controlled manner from one spot. And then I can take the last two out completely, and I'll have my pan loose in my hand. And then I'm going to clean it up and paint it and sell it. So anyway, now I'm going to go around and take out these bolts. So far so good. They're coming out all right. All right. I have 10 out of the 12 bolts completely out. These two, as you can see, I have them backed out quite a ways. And I'm about to use my little pry tool here to pop this cover off little by little. And I'm going to be very careful because I don't want to damage the surface of the where it joins together here. And you know something else we should talk about real quick. If you're trying to do this job, if you've got an axle like this that starts leaking, it could be from all sorts of different reasons, but one of the things that might be happening is right here is the breather hose. Right here. So this is supposed to be able to allow air pressure changes inside the axle, and it goes all the way up here, and then there's a little fitting which you hope stays above water so it doesn't allow water to run inside. But these things can get clogged. So during the process of this whole redo here, I'm going to disconnect this. I'm going to make sure that the breather is open and that there's no clog happening, because if the clog's happening, it could develop pressure inside here, which will help things start leaking. So always good practice to make sure your breather is free and clear and open. Okay, it popped loose pretty easy, and a really good sign here is that the oil coming out, it doesn't look terrible. It actually looks pretty good. I'm gonna pry this a little bit more. Oh yeah, and there's plenty in there too. That's a really good sign. Yay. I'm so happy to see that. I was worried that it would be empty and full of sludge. That oil looks fabulous. Hooray. Okay, so I'm going to let this drain in a controlled way, and once it's done, I'll pull the rest of the cover off and we'll have a look. Okay, looks like it's pretty drained out, so I'm going to pull these top two and pull off the cover. Okay, that's the last one. Come on, baby. Okay. Well, that doesn't look too terrible. I'm gonna have to get some brake clean and clean this out a little bit. Well, this is what it looks like. And you can see right there where this is a 4:30 to 1 ratio. So it's a fairly nice low ratio, which is good for the bigger tires. And it looks like the wear patterns on all of those gears in there look pretty nice. In my opinion, I don't really know what I'm talking about, but everything looks good in here to me. I'm going to have to look into it and see what I should do, if anything, to clean this out at all, or if I should just sort of, I know I have to take off all of the debris and clean this face here. This has to be completely clean before I start applying my new gasket material and all of that. So I know I got to clean that up, but I need to look into see I did see somewhere where someone had taken a plastic bag and put it over this entire gear mechanism to protect it while they were cleaning everything else. I don't know if that's really necessary since this looks like it's in pretty good shape, but I'm going to look into it a little bit more and I'll be right back. But before I go for real long, here's a really good sign as far as I'm concerned. This is my old diff cover, and I'm going to clean this as well as I can, and then I'm going to refinish the exterior and make it look pretty, and then I'm going to put it up for sale on my auto parts store. I'll probably ask a whopping $20 for it. But anyway, what I'm pointing out here is you can see where the level of the oil was. And you can see as it leaked down, it only leaked down maybe an inch while it was leaking and making that messy looking exterior. So it still had plenty of oil in it. And that's just a really, really good sign when you can see that it really hadn't dropped that much in its level. So I know that I'm not too terribly damaged here. So now I'm going to go take some brake clean and clean this thing out a little bit. Well, here's something else that is some damage that needs to be repaired before this can go back together. If you are dealing with a truck that has been off-roaded or rock crawled or anything like that, then you might run into this problem. This particular truck has been off-roaded quite a bit, and obviously this differential has been drug over rocks and boulders a few times. And what that has done is it has kind of made it where the metal along the bottom edge here is sticking from grinding. It's sticking this way. You can see it kind of hanging over the edge there. So look, when I take this scraper, you can see I'm hitting that metal, and it should be smooth like here with nothing. So this is from the metal grinding from dragging this across rocks. So what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to get a file and very carefully just file off that edge a little bit. Otherwise my new cover might not seat because of this stuff. So I got to get this stuff where it's smooth. So that's my next project here. Okay, so that's definitely better. There's no lip there anymore. It's nice and smooth. So I just have to clean the rest of this off and still see if I should do anything about the internals here. I don't think I should. I'm not going to do anything else about the internals on that thing. The oil was so nice and it looked like honey. It was clean and transparent, and it hadn't ever been mixed with water or anything. It just was surprisingly clean. So I'm not going to introduce anything else weird into the housing. I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to clean off the very last. I use my finger to kind of hook some of the last little bit of the old oil that was in the bottom of the housing. And so once that last little bit drains off, I'm going to use some, I'm going to put on some gloves, and I'm going to use some lacquer thinner on a lint-free cloth, and I'm going to wipe off the mating surface to make it as clean and oil-free as it possibly can be. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little bit of my black Permatex RTV sealant on my new housing cover, and I'm going to go around each one of the little bowl holes, and I'm going to stick it on the gasket onto my housing cover, and then I'm going to put another layer of RTV on the other side of the gasket, and again go around each one of the little holes, and then I'm going to put it on and bolt it down, and I'm going to do a star pattern when I do the bolt down, and ultimately the bolts will end up at about 33 pound-feet of torque, but to creep up on that, so start out by I kind of do it by hand. I don't really use a torque wrench too often unless I just want to double check my guesstimations, and they're usually pretty close. So that's what I'm going to do, and then I can't put oil in it until the sealant cures, so it'll have to wait until tomorrow to get refilled with oil. Yeah, that lines up pretty good. So time to bust out the RTV. That's what I have as far as the application of my Permatex. It goes all the way around in a continuous ribbon and goes all the way around every bolt hole. So now I'm going to lay this on very carefully so the bolt holes line up just right. And I might even drop a bolt or two through just to hold it. And then I will apply another layer of this, exactly like this, on top of the gasket. And then I will apply the whole assembly here to the housing, and I will tighten up all 12 of the bolts just enough to where the sealant starts to squeeze out a little bit around the edges, and then I'll wait about an hour. And then after that, I'll torque these all down in a star pattern to the correct torque after I let them sit for an hour after this is squeezed out. So that's the plan. And that's what it looks like. Yep. So now I'm going to go put this on and, like I said, bolt it down and wait for an hour. Well, there it is. It's all tightened up, kind of snug, but not real tight. And then I'm going to go ahead and post this video, probably right about the time this video is up and available to watch. An hour will have gone by, and I'll come back out here and I'll do the final torque, and then we'll let this thing cure overnight, and then tomorrow I'll be able to put the oil in it, and then I'm going to do the front tomorrow. It got kind of late, but this was fun. Worked out okay. So far so good, and I'm really happy about the way this all looked internally. Excellent. Now I'm thinking, got to get this thing ready and go on some serious back roads camping. Maybe next weekend. Keep your fingers crossed. Thanks for watching.